About 5 years ago, we had a chance to tour the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens' private begonia collection, which is the largest collection of begonias in North America and most likely the third largest collection in the world. The expanded collection began in the 1970s, compliments of Nita McLean, which was supported by May Blanton and her involvement in the local American Begonia Society branch. After that, the curator during the 1980s, Kelton Parker, built it up to a botanical collection. In the 2010s, Debbie Garrett and Don Miller, the latter who gave us an original tour of the collection and will be giving a second tour this time around, began to expand the collection further, and by 2014, the American Public Gardens Association recognized the collection as the national collection. Just 2 years ago, the Botanical Institute of Texas, otherwise known as BRIT, took over management. And this starts a new chapter because it will be developed into a conservation and research collection. The collection is now curated by Glenn Dickerson, who will briefly meet, and he's assisted by Joyce Black and a team of 43 volunteers. It just goes to show you that it takes a team effort to make a botanical collection come to life.
My name is Don Miller. I'm a volunteer here at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, and we have the largest collection of begonias in the United States. We're recognized by the American Association of Botanic Gardens as a national collection. We've got about 800 cultivars and about 430 species.
Where do you fit worldwide? Because I think I remember it was being like the third at some point. You don't know though.
I don't know exactly,
Yeah.
but third sounds about right. There's
Yeah.
a huge collection in France, and there are some large collections in China. Yeah.
And is this volunteer based, this collection?
It is, basically. We have one paid employee here, curator. I'm going to introduce him here. This is Glenn Dickerson, and he has just started about a year ago, not quite a year ago. So he keeps us all in line, and we work like dogs to try to take care of all these begonias.
And there is plenty of begonias here. So yeah, take us through maybe the history of this,
Okay.
like what this greenhouse was before you had a number of begonias here and when the begonias actually moved in.
This is a glass greenhouse. It was built in around 1960. And let's see, I believe they had poinsettias in here at one time. I think they had a succulent collection in here one time. Did have scented geraniums. So it's changed over the years. It's been about, oh gosh, let's see. About 3 or 4 years ago. The pandemic's got me all mixed up. That
Yeah.
was 2 years lost. So 4 or 5 years ago, the species begonias moved into here. And so this is the species house. There's a few cultivars, but mostly species. We've got them arranged alphabetically. That's just so we can find them when we're looking for them. Not necessarily always the best way to arrange them, but it's functional.
Well, let's go through some of them. I know people are eager to see some interesting begonias, and I know some folks really like to see some species begonias.
Well, we are in Texas. It's hot in the summers, and we had a particularly hot summer this year. So some of the things did suffer, but now that it's cooled off, things are perking up, and they're loving this cooler weather. This one right here is Begonia luxurians. Now, if you see it growing on the coast of California, it'll be 6 or 8 feet tall.
Wow.
From Brazil. It's unusual, compound leaf.
I think it's one of the more beautiful begonias. This is one that I bought from Steve's Leaves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big clusters of tiny white flowers when it blooms. The next one is Begonia lunaris, and this is a fairly new species, so it was named about 15 years ago, something like that.
Lunaris, I think of moon.
Moon, yes. Gets its name from the shape of the leaf. Looks like a half moon.
And where is this originally from?
This is from Brazil also, near in the Rio de Janeiro, state of Rio de Janeiro. Lots of begonias in Brazil are native to along the coast of eastern coast of Brazil. This one is a dark form. The leaf is darker than some of the others. This is the green form.
Yeah, now that I remember from the last time we did our tour, I do remember now all of those different forms that you were mentioning, yeah.
Yeah, I'm particularly fond of the different forms, intrigued by them. Begonias are very variable. So in one species you can have a dark leaf, a striped leaf, a green leaf, large leaf, a small leaf, and even in some you'll have a narrow leaf and a round leaf in the same species. So the botanists usually don't like to get down into all the little tiny details of the different forms, but horticulturists do.
Yeah, you literally have to, going down here, we can't select every single begonia to show, so.
No, we'll have to jump around.
Don's just, cogs are turning right now to see like, oh, which ones do I select, which ones I don't.
This one's very interesting. This is Ludwigii, native to Ecuador, and it is endangered. One of our goals here is conservation, and we grow as many endangered begonias as we can and try to distribute them.
And is this like an endangered thing because the habitat loss?
Mostly habitat loss, yes. And this is actually a variegated form.
Oh, wow.
Of Ludwigii.
A natural variegated form?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
You get a lot of varieties of the variegation in the leaf. There are some with, silver spots or lines in the leaf.
Yeah.
And lots of different forms. Another one right down the line is Luberzii, another Brazilian species, and also native to the east coast of Brazil. This is one that's been used a lot in hybridizing. Has big clusters. It's starting to bloom again of large white, the sort of creamy color, white flowers.
Right.
Fragrant.
Is part of what makes it interesting to hybridize is just the fragrance of it and the flowers, or do people like the leaf
yeah,
shape?
the shape of the leaf. It's unusual.
It is.
Pointed at both ends. And the large flowers, the fragrance.
So I see that you have like multiples here. Is that what you try to do? Try to have like 2 or 3 of them?
Try to keep 3 in the collection. We're getting so many plants that some of the big ones we're saying, well, let's just keep 1 or 2. So to make more room for the newer species as we get them. Usually when we get a new species in, we will, if we don't know much about it, most of them come from a very humid area, we'll grow them in a terrarium, propagate them, get several plants, and then try to acclimate them to the greenhouse. This one's very popular in the trade. This is Begonia maculata. People like the great big white spots on the leaves.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to lose those spots either, right?
No, it tends to keep those spots.
Is there any kind of theory as to why begonias have their spots?
I would assume it's sort of a camouflage. I'm not exactly sure about that, but I would assume it's camouflage. A lot of, if you grow begonias from seed, a lot of the seedlings will have spots, and then as they get older, they'll grow out of the spots.
Interesting.
So it's kind of like some of the animals, like a
fawn,
deer.
A deer fawn, yeah.
Well, let's see. I guess we could stop at this one. This is one from Africa, Loranthoides. And actually we don't have the other form. There's a form with a very narrow leaf in this same species.
Very green. Like, look at that leaf.
Yes, real nice glossy green.
Yeah.
This is another cane-like or shrub-type species, Begonia malaclosticta.
Nice pink spot.
Malachosticta.
Good pink spots.
Yes, pink spots on the leaves. It's usually grown in a terrarium, but we've managed to get it acclimated to the greenhouse.
Nice. I mean, it's shrubby. I would imagine that you'd need to get a big terrarium, or you just keep it small.
Yes, that's actually one of the problems with with growing them in terrariums, is because a lot of them do get tall.
Yeah. Ooh, I love succulent begonias. You walked right by them, though. It's like the begonias I like the most is the succulent begonias. The Colmanii.
Yeah.
I remember that from last time.
This is Colmanii.
Yeah.
From Brazil. In Brazil, a lot of the begonias are succulent, so they grow in the drier areas of the country. Well, even in deserts, they grow there. They frequently go dormant or semi-dormant in the dry season.
Will they lose their leaves?
Frequently, they lose their leaves, or most of their leaves.
I've seen this one in the trade, or at least I think I've gotten this from Steve's leaves.
Metallica.
Yeah, Begonia metallica.
Yes, Metallica.
It translates really nicely.
It suffered a little bit in the heat, but it's coming out now.
Yep. The leaves translate very nicely on the camera, actually. You could see the sheen.
Ah, good. I think it's kind of, well, I guess the sun's not out. It's early still.
It's still early. My eyes are not even opened yet. I was like, good thing Don's going to be on camera, and I'm behind the camera today.
Let's see.
This one's neat.
Multinervia.
Has many veins.
Yes.
Kind of just has a cool
It's
to it.
yeah, has a fairly thick stem,
Yeah.
bushy growth habit,
And very waxy, shiny leaf.
waxy, shiny leaves. This is an interesting one.
Very compact.
Very compact. It's a young plant, that's why it's so full and bushy. As this is related to Dredgii. And I guess, no, it's not really. So Dredgii is the one that has the caudex, the thick base,
Yep.
and you can see it here.
Yep.
And from South Africa.
Where
And
a lot
again,
of caudiciforms are.
Yes,
South
they
Africa.
grow in a dry region. So when it's dry, they tend to drop most of their leaves, even their stems, and kind of the caudex just stays there dormant until it cools off. I think some people, some of the botanists might even include this in Dredgii, the species. Right here, we've got
Wow, look at those flowers.
now this, well, in the
Unusual.
cooler areas of the country, it's not real difficult to grow Boliviensis. It's a tuberous species from
Bolivia.
yes, Bolivia, yes. You can see that tuber there.
Yeah. How unusual, too. The flowers are so, like, bell-shaped. It's like almost like a campanula.
Yes. And those tubers, I've seen some of those tubers, 18 inches across.
Wow.
This is a real spectacular plant.
So challenging to grow indoors. I've
This is
tried.
Begonia brevieramosa from New Guinea. It likes lots of humidity, lots of light, and lots of room to spread out. At times here we'll have this plant will be covering this whole table. And then Glenn will make us cut it back.
It's a monster. Well, that's when you know you're giving it the right stuff. I have tried this twice in my house. It is, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it to work.
Yeah, you really need a lot of humidity. Actually, talking about forms, this is a new form that was just discovered just recently by Mary Sizemore. And it's sort of a subtle difference. This one's more red and this one's more pink.
I mean, I could see it, but man, you have to have eyes for that.
Yeah, and they have to be next to each other.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Unless she was carrying like a Pantone with her.
This is where we root things. Sometimes when we transplant things, we'll put them here to sort of recover from the transplant shock.
Well, this is bizarro. Is this like an oxalis growing in?
That's one of our weeds,
begonia?
actually. In a begonia greenhouse, oxalis is a weed.
Buffoderma. That means
Buffoderma.
the skin of a toad or something. Skin of a frog.
All right, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Buffoderma, it's been in cultivation for quite a while. Actually, they're not really, some botanists say it's not really a species, but we're pretty sure it is a species. It has not, very rarely blooms in cultivation. I don't think we've ever had it bloom here. It has bloomed in areas where they have cooler temperatures. White flowers, said to be extinct in the wild.
Oh, really? And then why would some botanists think that it isn't a species?
Because they're really not sure where it did come from.
Oh, I see. So they don't even have like herbarium specimens that have
right.
Know. Right.
And there's controversy about it. This is Begonia coccinea, and this is the species Coccinea. There is a cultivar that the begonia people call coccinea.
Is it like refers something to
red coccinea?
Oh, the coccinea, like the beetle, or like the
coccinea
cochineal
means red. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, because the cochineal beetle is the one that produces like the red lipstick.
Red, yes.
Yeah.
So it's got red flowers, blooms in the spring, has a real succulent leaf, another native to Brazil. And of course there are lots of trailing begonias. That's another thing I like about begonias. There's so many different kinds. There are upright, trailing, bushy.
This one's got a nice leaf. It reminds me a little bit of like a larger grape leaf or something along those lines.
Yes, I think sometimes they call it, a common name is a grape leaf begonia.
Oh, that's cool.
Or cucumber begonia, I've heard it called that before.
Yeah, I can see the cucumber leaf too.
Hangs down, makes a great hanging basket, blooms in the spring with large clusters of white flowers. The next one is another species, cane-like begonia, Corallinia. And these species, canes, are all the ones that man has used to hybridize to create all of the cultivars, cane-like cultivars. You can see these are the male flowers. They come out first. Then the big clusters that hang for a long time are the female flowers. Here you can see them.
Yep.
Big cluster of female flowers.
Do you ever find yourself doing cuttings and selling them to the public here? Is that allowed?
We do. We have 2 plant sales a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. We'll have our next plant sale the first week of October. Have lots of plants, all kinds of plants here at the Botanic Gardens. Big plant sale.
I would think that could be a good way to also raise funds for maintaining this as well, to a certain degree.
Exactly. We make quite a bit of money in our plant sales.
Because, you know, you have these really unique species. I'd imagine that people would want some, and God forbid you ever lose anything, you might have a safety net with like people growing them in,
Exactly.
in their homes and in their backyards.
Yes, distribution is conservation.
Yeah.
So the more you get them spread around, you know, if you get a rare begonia, you shouldn't hoard it. You shouldn't keep it and say, well, I'm the only one that has it. You should share it with other people, because you might lose it, and if you lose it, you can go back to this person you shared it with,
Right.
and get it back. There are lots of begonias I've grown for years, shared them with other people, lost mine, I get back from them, then they would lose theirs, they would get it back from me. It would just go back and forth.
Yeah, it's a great safeguard.
But yes, the more you distribute them, the more they're safer they are. This is an interesting little begonia. Again, you might be able to guess where it's from.
Cuba, cubensis.
Cuba, cubensis. Whenever you see ensis, E-N-S-I-S, on the back of a botanical name, plant name, that means that's where it's from.
I also just learned that when something is referred to as officinalis, it was used in the officina, in the office, so it was usually a very important medicinal.
Medicinal, yes. A lot of the early botanists were physicians, doctors, and I think they liked working with plants better than working with people, because they would go out in the jungles and collect plants and name them.
Can't blame them.
This is a very common species, cuculata. This is one of the parents of the wax begonia, the semperflorens that people plant in their yards. We've got actually two forms of it here. This one here and then this one here.
Yeah, much darker.
Very easy to grow, grows a lot, blooms a lot, white flowers. Actually, this is naturalized in the southern United States and in Florida.
Escaped from bedding.
Yes. This next one is Curtii. Curtii is very interesting.
Oh,
Let's
that's
see.
nice. It looks like a greener, what is it, Setosa?
Venosa.
Venosa,
Yeah, it's
Venosa.
very similar
Yeah.
to Venosa.
Yes.
Let's see.
It doesn't have any of the hair on it, but the rhizome and everything, and the
Rhizome
what are
and
the
the
little
large stipules.
what are the scallops that are kind of on? Yeah, is that a stipule?
This is a stipule.
Okay.
And this makes a begonia a begonia. This is another characteristic of begonias. Some stipules, the stipules protect the leaf bud as it's forming, and then some of them fall off readily, and then some are persistent, like here, and they just line the stem.
Which is probably a way to identify then if the stipule is persistent or
Exactly, yes.
falls off.
And some of these stipules protect the stem. Now this is a succulent begonia, so it grows in a dry area. So I imagine these stipules help protect the stems from the hot sun. This is Dicroa, another cane-like species from Brazil.
Two colors or two dicroa?
Dicroa, don't know that one.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's missing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, chroma, I guess, would be more color.
Maybe two colors.
Yeah.
The petals are lighter than the seed pods, or darker than the seed pods, I mean. Yeah, that could be it. I haven't, I don't know that. Well, let's see. Let's talk about this one. This is actually a cultivar, a Rex cultivar. And the name of it is Millie Thompson. And if you're a begonia person, you probably know who Millie Thompson was. They were in New York, Long Island. They had a huge begonia collection. Actually, Millie and her husband were both master plumbers, and but Millie got interested in begonias and started collecting them.
I thought you were going to say a master gardener, and you said master plumber.
Master plumber.
Didn't even know there were master plumbers.
And so this plant was named after her. She's done lots of research. She's not with us anymore, but has done a lot in promoting begonias. She imported a lot of species from European botanists. If you could kind of look at these against the wall here.
Oh, yeah.
This is a group of begonias. They're not displayed real well here. Hopefully we will eventually get new greenhouses and be able to display some of these things better. But most of these are native to Brazil. They call them the Brazil tree begonias. They get 12, 15 feet tall.
Wow.
Well, let's say most of them. Big, thick stems, huge leaves. Some of the leaves get 2 feet across.
I mean, they almost look like a tall rhubarb or gunnera or something.
Yeah. Yeah, the flowers are white. They're tiny, big clusters, huge clusters of tiny white flowers. In South America, well, some of them grow in Ecuador and Peru. Some of the natives use the leaves as umbrellas.
I was going to say, you said these are tree begonias. Are they a type of shrub, or is this a whole new classification?
They're herbaceous. They are herbaceous, but they get tall. This is a very unusual begonia. This is Begonia crassicalis, native to Guatemala. Now this one is native to areas that get dry, have dry season. And even in a greenhouse, sometimes this will go dormant. It'll drop all its leaves. All you see, you get over on, well, you can see it here, I guess, this real thick stem. And then they bloom. When it doesn't have any leaves on it, it'll be covered with these spikes of pink flowers. And then later on, those pink flowers will fall off and it will form its leaves again.
Do you ever find any pollinators in this greenhouse when these are in bloom?
No, I don't think we've really found any pollinators. Unless you'd want to call a fly a pollinator.
Well, a fly could be a pollinator, yeah.
Could be. This one here is Handelii. Now, all begonias have their male and female flowers separate, but this is one species. There are a few species that have female flowers on one plant and male flowers on a separate plant.
Oh, interesting.
And this is one of them. This is Handelii, and it grows in China and India. And this, I believe, is the male. Yeah, this is the male form. So this will only have male flowers on it. This begonia here, Hatacoa, I believe this is native to Asia, and I believe it's native to India and China. And this is one of the species that has been used in hybridizing Rex begonias.
This is beautiful. Leaf shape, the color. This is a silver form.
Yeah, the narrow leaf. Now again, this is a very variable one. There are some with solid green leaves.
Oh, here's some with
Spotted leaves.
Yeah.
This is the spotted form. When used breeding with Rex begonias, this tends to make more of a smaller leafed variety. And while we're talking about Rex begonias, this is the species Rex, and a definition of the Rex begonia, a cultivar Rex begonia, is that it has genes from the species Rex. So this species was used, actually this is another one that was used in hybridizing Rex begonias. This is Robusta.
Robusta.
And if you look at the, well, let's go around the other side. While we're going by a big Lunaris.
Yeah, you have another one over here, huh? Nice.
And this is Robusta.
Man, look at the fuzzy petioles.
Yes, it's covered with this, and you will see this characteristic in a lot of the Rex cultivars. The red hairs. This is talking about U numbers. U numbers are the American Begonia Society assigns a U number is for unidentified species. They're mostly species. Occasionally we get a plant in, we don't know whether it's a species or a cultivar, so it might get a U number. But this is probably the latest U number, 697 from China, this one here.
Yep.
So these are assigned a U number, and we grow them under that number. Once they're identified, or if they are described, if they're thought to be a new species, then they'll get their proper species name, and that's linked to the U number.
So would you be dissuaded to do like an herbarium specimen of these until they actually get a species name, or can you put it into an herbarium specimen?
I believe you probably could. I don't think anyone's actively doing that. We have here at Fort Worth, the Botanic Garden has just recently been taken over by the BRIT, which is the Botanical Institute of Texas, and they have a huge herbarium. So we actually have the opportunity to put some of these U numbers in the herbarium. They do have some cultivars in the herbarium, and sometimes that's done.
I learned, I just went to an herbarium, well, my alma mater's herbarium at Cornell, and it was started by Liberty Hyde Bailey, who's the father of modern day horticulture, and they brought him in to elevate horticulture to a science, and they have one of the largest collections of cultivated varieties of plants in their herbarium. I was like, that's so unusual. You don't really hear about that.
You don't have to worry about them dying.
Yeah.
Now, a herbarium, in case you don't know, is a dried plant put on a piece of paper, cardboard or heavy paper, documented where it came from. Sometimes it'll say if it has flowers, just a little description of it. And then that's, when you describe a new species, that's what you do. You make a herbarium specimen. And that's where you go back to that if you ever have questions of what that species looked like. So that herbarium specimen is kept as the type of that species collection.
But typically botanists and taxonomists would collect species plants. It's kind of unusual to do cultivated varieties, but they do them in herbariums as well, which is kind of cool.
Yes, a couple of young plants. We've just acclimated them, new acquisitions, just been acclimated to the table. They're still small. I've found a lot of times if you get them acclimated to the table, they really do a lot better.
Talk about the acclimation process. Like, what does that entail?
Well, like I said earlier, a lot of the new species we will grow in a terrarium to make sure we don't lose them, make sure we learn a little bit about how they grow, where they're from. We'll propagate them, get new plants of the same species, and then we will sometimes take them out of a terrarium. We might put them under the mist for a few weeks, let them get used to a little bit drier environment, and then put them out on the table, on the growing bench in the collection. This is Begonia rubetiae, named after, from the Philippines, named after famous begonia botanist, Rosario rubete. And this one here, rubropunctata, we have just put on the bench. You can see a little bit of brown. That's from acclimating, getting used to the drier temperature, drier air in the greenhouse. You can see the new leaves are coming out nice and fresh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it has to lose its old leaves in order for the new ones to look like perfect.
Right. The old ones will slowly die off.
Yeah.
and the new ones will grow.
Ooh, this one's kind of unique. It's like very prostrate to the ground. It's like this
Yes.
Rhytophylla. It's looking almost
Rhytophylla.
like a
This is very
lily or
interesting.
something. Oh, it
back
looks like
of the leaf.
a Victoria Amazonica from the bottom,
Yeah.
except without the spines.
The veins.
Yeah.
Again, we've grown this one in a terrarium for a long time, and it's never bloomed. So this has just recently been put on the bench,
Yeah.
and you can see it's blooming. Likes that air movement. Along here are a lot of the U numbers. This one's from the Philippines. Dr. Robete was here a few years ago. She thinks it's maybe a cultivar, but a lot of this you really don't know until you start getting into the genetics.
I was going to say that might be the only way that you could determine, right, whether it's a cultivar or
It
not.
is the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, even if it's if you're doing genetic analysis and you say, oh, it's a cultivar, but it could have like parentage down the line of another species and fall on the phylogenetic tree. I don't know how that all works, but
Yeah.
I would imagine that you're like, well, this is closely related to this one, and it sits close to the phylogenetic tree, but was it a natural deviation or hybrid down the line? you know?
Right, right. This one is another one, U number, actually another one from the Philippines. This is 632. So this one had a hard time in our hot summer. And you would expect that because it comes from the Himalaya mountains.
Oh, wow. It wants a little bit of the cool atmosphere.
Yes. So it died back when it was hot, but now it's coming back.
So earlier you said that the begonias are the fastest growing genus right now, or being discovered? Or?
Yes, I've read from, I believe it was Dr. Well, I won't pin anyone down,
Yeah.
but a botanist said that it's the fastest growing genus in the plant family. They're discovering new begonias all the time. Botanists are describing them all the time. We've got our running total there, 2,109 species, and I think that was as of September the 6th. Dr. Mark Hughes at the Edinburgh Botanic Garden keeps a running total on it. So they're always describing new species. I think about 3 years ago there were 1,800.
Yeah,
So-
I'll have to go back to our earlier video and see how many there were. we'll have a good
well,
we'll have a good
this
blog.
particular article, this is Peter Moonlight has redescribed the sections of begonias. The genus Begonia is so large that the botanists have divided it into sections. There are 70 sections in
Wow.
the genus Begonia. And he was revising some of those sections, doing DNA work. So, and actually in his paper, which is, I think he did it in 2018, so that's 4 years ago, he said there were 1,800 species and growing. Actually, he said that it was expected to be more than 2,000.
And that became reality.
Yes. Well, here's another typical example of forms. This is another U number, U514. It's an Asian begonia.
I mean, do these grow like right next to one another and somebody says, oh, that's how I can find it, that it's a form? Or
Usually growing right next to each other.
Okay, because I was going to say, I mean, they could be completely different species. You wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's very confusing, and a lot of that is up to the botanists. One botanist may say they're the same species, another botanist may say, no, they're different species or different varieties. But forms are usually growing together in a cluster. Sometimes you'll have a botanist may describe a variety, and it will be in a different location. Very similar, but slightly different.
But knowing the, especially because you have bred and witnessed breeding many different types of begonias, knowing that their variability after they breed is not unique, right? It's
Right, right. That's how you get so many different kinds of begonias. And really, the breeding in begonias has only begun because there are so many new species being discovered, so many unusual characteristics that are found in the newer species, and man has just started hybridizing them. This is an interesting one. This is Begonia themii
huge.
from Mexico, and it's huge.
I like the ones with like Schefflera-like leaves, the palmate leaves.
Yes, these are the compound leaves. And actually, well, the rhizomatous begonias, you can propagate most of those from a leaf. I just discovered recently, if you were propagating this leaf, if you put this in the soil media, you would get lots of sprouts right where the petiole attaches to the leaf. Now, I cut off these leaflets.
Mm-hmm.
I cut them in half and propagated them, thinking that, well, they will grow because you can propagate them from a section of a leaf, but thinking that this bottom section would root and grow faster than this top section. But actually the opposite thing happened. And the top section rooted faster and sprouted faster than the bottom section.
Fascinating.
So I thought that was unusual.
Very unusual.
Not what I would think.
Did you do it multiple times to corroborate the
Well, I've done it one time with
Yeah.
multiple plants, multiple
Interesting.
leaf sections. Yeah.
Fascinating.
So
Always surprising you.
yes, there's always something new. This, I'll leave it there, and you can get up close. An unusual
Bizarro.
species from Brazil.
Almost looks like a mushroom stem. You know how some of those mushrooms have that kind of
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's got these hairs or scales.
Mm-hmm.
They're sort of modified hairs. And really, this is interesting, the way these are the stipules, and the way this leaf comes out of those stipules.
Mm.
Still haven't got a name on it. Actually, botanists like to work with plants that they know where they came from, where they collected it, and it's a lot easier. But when you know, well, this came from Brazil, but we're not sure where in Brazil.
And how come that doesn't get recorded? Where is the inconsistencies coming?
This one was brought back by a hobbyist, I think it was earlier than that, in the 50s. She was given this begonia on a trip in Brazil, and she said, well, that's all you need.
Yeah.
It's from Brazil.
Yeah, right.
And so that's what we have. Okay, let's look at terrariums just briefly. You can sort of see the terrarium collection. Right now we have about 438, I think, terrariums. And again,
Slash salad bowls.
salad bowls. We use these salad bowls. They do make excellent terrariums, inexpensive. Just put one bowl on top of the other.
I remember when I saw that, I was like blown away. I was like, this is it's so good.
And then we clip them together with, well, actually, we used to use hair clips. We've got these little, here's a hair clip. I think they call them orchid clips sometimes. Yeah. We just clip 2 or 3 around, keep them in keep them on.
Now, do you have to aerate these at some point, like just to get some airflow in there? Do you like
No,
open them up
not
or
really.
vent them? No,
Of course,
not at
now
all.
we do check them when we get around to it.
Yeah.
We have volunteers working on them every day,
Yeah.
and they, you know, work through a section and just try to clean them up, look for anything wrong with them. If they're not doing well, we propagate them, make sure we don't lose anything.
Are you growing them in sphagnum, or what are you growing them in?
Most of them are grown in the sphagnum mix.
Yeah.
And actually they call this the Millie-Thompson mix, which is 4 parts sphagnum moss, 1 part perlite. We take the long fiber sphagnum moss and we cut it up into smaller pieces and make that mix. This one is an interesting little trailing begonia from Borneo. Sarawak, which is Borneo is a large island. It's composed of Malaysia as part of it, Indonesia has part of it, and then there's a little independent country, Brunei, on that island. So this one is from Sarawak, the Malaysian part of Indonesia, Borneo. Now this one here, this one is actually a cultivar, but it's a cultivar of the species, and I put it here because it's blooming. Our little Prismatocarpa is not blooming. This has been in cultivation for a long time, favorite for terrarium growers or vivariums, very easy to grow, blooms with those tiny yellow flowers, native to Africa, right along the equator on the west coast of Africa. You get a lot of yellow flowered begonias. And this is called variegation because of the variegated leaf. Now this is Terrarium from Thailand.
Like a wing-like Terrarium, right?
Well, Pteris is a fern.
Oh, fern, that's right.
Fern.
Yeah, Pteris, yeah.
Pteris. So fern-like, fern form.
I think I got confused because some of the dinosaur names for winged dinosaurs.
Pterodactyl.
Yeah, exactly.
There's several here again. There's several forms. This is a little green one.
Wow.
I saw some pictures on the internet of one without the little spots, solid green. And this is a tuberous one. It grows in the limestone rocks. A lot of the Asian species grow in limestone. We found in cultivation they grew fine in the sphagnum mix. We don't have to add any lime. But they're a little bit confused. They don't know when to go dormant, when to keep growing, so sometimes they'll kind of go half dormant and want to grow too. Little tiny pink flowers. Vitarifolia. Vitaria is a species of fern. Strap-like leaves. Again, this grows on the rocks. Some of the rocks, I believe this one is, no, I'm not sure what kind of rock it is. Sometimes they'll grow on granite. Sometimes they'll grow on sandstone.
Very unusual leaf.
Mm-hmm. Yellow flowers. This has it's actually orange. The bud is orange. And when it opens up, it's yellow. This is Jinyanghensis from Jinyang, China. Rhizomatous species. Has a compound leaf. Compound leaves are unusual for begonias. And let's see, let's look at this one. This is This was a new species. It was just described, I think, in February. Again, from Borneo.
Wow, look at the metallic color.
Has that blue iridescence to it.
Yeah, deep, deep in the forest.
Yes. And its name is Kapua huluensis.
It's fun.
And it's from Kapua Hulu.
Oh yeah, that's very pretty.
And let's see, this one it grows on sandstone in Borneo. Xiphophila. Xipho means narrow. Phyla means leaf, narrow leaf. So lots of variety, lots of variation in the genus Begonia. Well, we're just going to walk along this aisle. We're going to go to the cultivar house, but we have to stop and look at a couple of begonias on the way. This is Begonia longipediolata.
Ooh, this one's pretty. Look at the...
There's a little pollinator there.
Yeah. It's a little like jump
Little
spider.
spider.
Yeah. I love jump spiders.
Yeah, the little tiny, well, they're almost red and white.
Yeah, they're like little
Deep pink
clusters.
flowers. Again, there's a couple of forms. This one has a wider leaf. You can see the flowers are a darker color.
Yeah.
This is a begonia. It was imported by Mary Sizemore, and a botanist described it as Begonia sizemore. So now, as the days went by, or the years went by, another botanist started looking at it and said, "That's not right." So this botanist said, "This is not sizemore. It's longiciliata." So it's reduced to a cultivar name because, well, here's the other longiciliata. And this is just young, you can't see. It does have the long hairs on it.
Right.
But this is a distinct form of this species. And it's cultivated, so it becomes a cultivar, sizemore. This is a species from Brazil, Herbaceae. Well, used to be Herbaceae. I still call it Herbaceae. A botanist has done some research on it and says these got mixed up 100 years ago. That this is not Herbaceae, this is Lanceolata. So we've got, here's the other one.
So is this Herbaceae?
This one was called Lanceolata.
Oh, I
This
see.
one was called Herbaceae. But now this one is Lanceolata, and this one is Herbaceae.
Okay.
They're both epiphytic begonias from Brazil. They grow on the trees in the rainforest along the Atlantic coast. Little tiny white flowers. We actually have two forms here. This is a shorter form, sometimes has little spots.
Yeah, look at that.
Sometimes has the, frequently has the Stipules, the little secretion that the leaves give off.
Is that for like ants or?
A lot of people, sometimes the ants will, are attracted to it.
So it's like a
It's
little
really
sugary.
a way to release things from the leaf.
Oh yeah, like little exudates, like salts
Right.
and sugars and stuff like that.
Right. But a lot of people will see that on their plant and think, oh, Oh my God, I've got to get those off. They'll clean them. I cleaned my plant off and all those little
Yeah, sometimes
insects.
philodendrons will get that kind of like secretions coming out as well.
This is a species from Mexico. Again, it's a variable species. This is nigricans, variety nigricans. And you can see the green form of it too. And this plant is important because it was used a lot in hybridizing. So a lot of your cultivars will be very similar to this. This is Himsliana, species from China. There's actually, the main form is a green form. This is the variegated form with the silver spots on it. And this is endangered in its native habitat. Okay, let's go to the cultivars.
Let's do that.
We hope you enjoyed that thorough, though not exhaustive, tour of the begonia collection at Fort Worth Botanic Garden. Stay tuned in the next episode because we'll be going over the begonia cultivar collection. If you're digging the botanical videos we produce, go ahead and give them a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to follow along, and hit the notifications bell if you never want to miss another video. And feel free to say thanks with a tip too. 1% of our Google AdSense proceeds go back to plant conservation, so your viewership helps in more ways than one. As always, you could head over to homesteadbrooklyn.com to find a suite of online audiovisual houseplant courses, from houseplant basics to the houseplant masterclass. And if you're interested with what we're sowing and growing outdoors and other cool stories, then check out our sister channel over at Flock Finger Lakes. We'll see you in the next video.